And I look up at the screen, and all I see is a pair of shoes dangling off the side of the stage.
Welcome. You are entering a strange realm. A realm of what ifs. What if movies, television shows, and video games were better, worse, bizarrer, or downright different? What might they look like? Find out on today's episode of CineCasters.
Hello, and welcome to CineCasters, the show where we watch movies, talk about them, dissect them, deconstruct them, and reconstruct them, and in the process, analyze them and talk about their themes and their content and the relationship between theme and content, and then we reimagine what they could have been. How we would reimagine these had someone handed us a check for billions of dollars and said, "Go make this movie."
Oh,
how would we have done it? Yeah. Also, movies don't tend to cost billions of dollars.
Not unless your name's Peter Jackson
Or James Cameron, suppose.
Or Michael Bay?
Or I don't know. Yeah. I'll have to ask him next time I see him.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm Nate Draper, and as always, I am joined by Janglez.
Yo, that was a really good intro until you sort of lost me halfway through there. You were like, and then we
I stopped because I was watching your reaction
because it was so good. I was like, yo, that you were like, we're gonna construct, we're gonna look at them, analyze them, construct them, deconstruct them, and then reimagine them. And I was like, this is the best intro we've ever done. And then you sort of lost me there. That's okay.
Yeah,
it was still excellent.
I just was so amused by your face.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny face.
It's a great face. Yeah.
So today we're looking at, this is the second part of our Total Recall CineCasters series. So if you haven't seen the first one, that was last week where we did the original Paul Verhoeven Total Recall. Today we are doing the 2012 remake. I think it's 2012.
Yes, it is 2012.
2012 remake of Total Recall with fucking everybody's in this movie. It's Colin Farrell, Kate Beckinsale, Jessica Biel, John Chu, Bryan Cranston.
Right, Bryan Cranston.
Bill Nighy. Who am I?
Bill Nighy, that's right. Yes.
Those are all the big names I saw.
The guy who plays Harry, who's not a huge actor, but he was in the second season of Fargo. I'm just going to look it up because I want to make sure that I get his name right.
Yeah. But those are there's a lot of big names.
Yeah, no.
So
what? Here we go. Bokeem Woodbine.
Oh yeah.
And so he is in. If I'm not mistaken, he is actually in the second season of Fargo.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So right off the bat, just to get it out of the way, in terms of how this movie deals with the ambiguity of memory and dream compared to the first one, where are you at with it?
So I felt like this movie had a much more definitive solution and a much more definitive distinction that it was trying to make between these are memories and these are things that are really happening.
Yeah.
And I felt like the ambiguity that I appreciated about the first movie was not present in this one.
I agree. I think somebody watched the original movie and was like, this would make a great science fiction, without realizing that it's the details in the over-the-top action and in the cheesiness and also in the setup at the beginning. Those details make the movie into its ambiguousness. And I felt like this movie is going no. For me, watching this movie, it was like, oh, he's a secret agent. There's never really a question. At one moment, he's like, you're going to wake up. And they have the dreams where he's like, that shit'll mess with your mind. And he's like, we can offer you all these memories. But then he wakes up and he's back there anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I
thought they were going to make a definitive thing, or make it more ambiguous, where it was like, wait a second, he doesn't remember or something like that. And I couldn't, to me, this movie was saying definitively that he was a secret agent. I never got the feeling that he was ever in doubt of that, or that we as an audience should be in doubt.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the key scenes for me that really kind of sort of steered it away from that direction was the scene with Harry.
Okay.
So in the original, that's the red pill guy.
Yeah, which is I thought that scene was great because it's so intellectual. In a movie that is chock full of action all the time, they are immediately like, let's take a moment and talk about what's going on in a very cerebral sense in a movie that's not really supposed to be cerebral.
Yeah, exactly. It's such an interruption. Like,
yeah,
everything's moving along, and then it suddenly comes to a halt.
Yeah,
and goes, okay, wait a minute. None of this is actually happening for real.
Yeah.
And it forces you, because I was trying to figure that out, because I was like, well, on one level, it seems like some of those ideas are here, but I don't find myself engaging with it the same way I did in the first movie. And part of that's because I think in the first movie, there's two things. One is that scene. That scene really interrupts everything and really makes you question, like, how much of what I'm seeing is the actual, like, reality of what's happening. There's also the interaction with the media in the first film, that you see him, he's on the train, he sees the advertisement for Recall, and then he's back on the train and he sees the advertisement for going to Mars. So you get this connection between this sort of these memories that are being formed,
and the subconscious
exactly, and how that's informed by some kind of media infrastructure. In this, it's just like it's there as a backdrop to, like, explain what's going on. That's how it felt to me, at least.
Yeah, for me, it was the scene with Harry where he comes in. I felt like that was distilled into an action formula. One of the biggest problems that I had with that scene is that he goes, "You have to kill the Melina character, the Jessica Biel character." And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Then the memories will all shatter. And I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't work thematically, because if it's a dream, it doesn't matter who you kill, right? All you have to do is wake up.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I needed something, like, that's why I thought the pill worked so well. Like, I needed something where it's like, yes, you have to commit an act, but killing, I think it just doesn't work. It's too obvious because, and I think the reason is because I needed the stakes to be real. But I also needed the stakes to be not obvious, because he's just like, oh, you have to kill Jessica. But if it isn't a dream, then you're helping them. The stakes are too real that way. But if it is a dream, it has to be like, no, she doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you shoot her or not, because none of this matters. And then it goes like, oh, okay, like, she's not real. Like, I don't know. It just, that movie seemed to be distilled down. Somebody was like, how do we make this movie work in an action movie, without realizing that scene is so significant. It's a stop in an action movie that needs to be there in order to make this ambiguity come through in a really clever and poignant way.
Yeah.
The second thing for me was actually, you were talking about the media, and I don't disagree. I think the media is just sort of there in this movie. Like, it's very much like very preoccupied with the news. We do get some of this stuff. Like, if you're paying attention, that we never see Hauser's face at the beginning, and they introduce the name Hauser beforehand. So it's certainly there, but when they're in the total, like, recall, or in the recall center itself, we don't get any of them talking about, like, oh, do you want aliens? Do you want to be a secret agent? And the blue sky, like, that drop where he says, like, blue skies on Mars, they'll think of anything now. It's like that was, for me, in the original movie, that blue sky line is why, when I was like, at the very end, I was like, oh shit, that's when it came for me, because the movie was fun. It was a stupid science fiction movie up until that point when the atmosphere shows up and there's blue skies, and I went, hang on, wait a second, that dude said the thing, and now we're here watching it, and that was before the memories. Then it all came together for me. I never had a moment, I mean, I'd seen the original movie, but I never had a moment in this movie where I was like, I knew this was going to be ambiguous. It was always, I know exactly what this is. I know what it wants to be. It never feels ambiguous. Certainly, if you've seen the original, you can be like, was it or wasn't it? But it never comes across as quite as smart that way.
I agree. Yeah. The other thing, too, going back to that scene with Harry and the sort of the stakes being too real, I thought it was strange that he basically, he kills Harry, is sort of assumes that everything that happens from that point on is real. But then there's a problem. Like, okay, so wait, we have no other I guess the scene is meant to imply that Harry was actually like working for the government or something like that. But you just killed your only friend.
Yeah, you killed your best friend.
And he never like goes like, wait a minute, like he never experiences any guilt over that. He never questions that, which I thought was very strange in a movie that's sort of meant to say like, oh, this is real. Like everything that's happening is actually technically real. And so, but the way he's going to, like in the original, the way he deals with it is like the red pill guy, he shoots the red pill guy. Well, in that, it makes sense no matter how you look at it. Like, okay, either that person was an agent who was sent there to put him to sleep with this red pill, or it was in fact a guy trying to get him to wake up.
Yeah.
In this case, no matter which way you look at it, it's like, okay, well, wait a minute. That, like, the character believes that this is real. The Colin Farrell character believes this is real, and he's just killed his friend, his best friend, assumedly, and yet doesn't wrestle with the ramifications of that. And I just thought that was very bizarre.
This movie's not as smart. Like, the original movie was cheesy to a point in the very Paul Verhoeven way, right? But it was also smart in that it was trying to be cheesy to like have this fantasy come across. Whereas this movie has that sort of like mid 2000s, early 2010s like sci-fi grittiness. I will say in the Harry scene, they did do something interesting with light. The scene is very, very bright because the lobby is bright, and it's constantly like, if you watch Colin Farrell, he's constantly blinking the light out of his eyes, almost as if he's trying to wake up. I did notice that detail, but I can't tell if that was just somebody being like obnoxious with the lighting or trying to prove a point around how like that he's trying to wake up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I'm trying to be charitable with it. Like I could see it being, I feel like on some level you could still interpret it as like, oh, this is actually some kind of implanted memory. But I think even then the question still remains like, that character, the Colin Farrell character, believes it's real. Yeah. And so it's just kind of strange that like he believes he's done something and he doesn't really wrestle with that. And okay, going to the lighting for a second. I did think the other thing that kind of threw me from the start was there were some very bizarre technical choices. And I'm thinking specifically editing. I know it's not something that we don't really talk about a lot, and it's a thing that we don't really notice a lot when we watch movies, but there were some really just bad edits.
Really?
The pacing was all over the place. And to me, it looked like there was a different scene and they recut it to make it fit some other idea.
That may have been
That's how it looked to me watching it. And I mean, I've spent time in editing rooms, so I could I've seen how like I can kind of spot those things, but yeah, that was how it read to me. Like there was just so many. And here's an example. This is one more obvious example to maybe illustrate my point. Or it'll make it a bit clearer. There's the scene where he goes to recall, and then there's the guys that are outside. Like he's beaten up all the first round of guards, and then there's like a second wave that's outside the door. So basically, like he's inside. They've sent cameras in to check if he's the only one in there. Then there's a good chunk of time that passes where he's getting set up and planning a trap. And then it cuts to them outside going, he's the only one who's in there. Let's break in. And I was like, the timing on that's just
slow. That scene is weirdly, why would you not just knock down I don't understand.
Exactly. And that's a case where I'm like, that was, to me, I felt like that was a problem that really could have been fixed with editing. Like the pacing of it was so, it didn't make any sense just from a character logic perspective.
I think they were just trying to be like sci-fi world with sci-fi stuff. Because I will say, like, I like to be nice to this movie. I really liked the look and the world building that happened in the world.
Yeah, I did too.
I thought the fall was a great idea, and it's a great action set piece setup. Like something's gonna happen with the fall when they set it up right off the bat.
Yeah.
Right.
And the gravity reversal.
Fun. That's not how the core works. That's not how gravity works. But it's a good setup. It tells the audience like this is what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? You can see when you're watching what's gonna happen. Even like just like when they go through the colonies and the slums of the colonies, it's clearly like oh, we're setting this up so you're familiar with what the terrain looks like, so that when we do the chase scene, you can follow it a little bit better because you know what the terrain looks like. I appreciated that. This movie was really, really good at being like, check out this space. Now we're going to do an action sequence in that space later. Check out this theme or technology or setup, and we're going to do an action sequence in this later. The only part that I think didn't handle that particularly well was the car chase scene.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I thought the car chase scene was dope, but flying cars sort of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, because we don't see any before that. That's a good point.
Which is weird because this movie was really deliberate with everything else.
Yeah. The action scene that I actually did think was pretty creative was the elevator chase scene.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, that's a creative way to like imagine futuristic elevators and what sort of jumping between elevator platforms and how that would go. I thought, okay, that was one action scene where I was like, more engaged because I thought it was doing something a bit more unique.
Yeah, my the big action sequence that didn't hit the best for me was actually the last one.
Oh, I actually admittedly skipped through most of it.
That last action sequence was kind of really boring. In fact,
it was quite cliche.
Yeah, it was sort of save the girl, beat the bad guy. I don't know. It was This movie is not nearly as smart as the original, even though the original movie is actually kind of dumb. In that it's supposed to be cheesy. What I will say is that this movie I did think it did some really, really neat things. First, it did the same thing that I do with the remake in that it got rid of Richter. And replaced Richter with Lori. See you at the party, Richter. Got rid of Richter and replaced Richter with Lori, which I think is a better choice.
It is a better choice.
It as a character, it even makes like the hunting of, Douglas being hunted by Lori feels more personal, both as an audience member and as like an empathy to his character, because you're like, yo, that bitch was just pretending to be his wife, and he thinks that she was real. And so the fact that she's hunting him this whole time is like we have a vested interest in him getting away from her and finally beating her.
Yeah.
Whereas we don't have that with Richter, other than the "see you at the party, Richter." But I did enjoy that. I thought the way this movie like looked science fiction was really, really clever. Like it just looks really, really good. There was never a part in this movie where I was like, that looks dumb. I was always like, this looks really good. The parts that I thought were dumb were like other things, like usually plot references or just glossing over things. I liked the fact that Recall was much sketchier in this version.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like the fact that he has to go to Chinatown for it, the fact that he has to like that it's a bit more sketchy. Everyone's sort of like, I can't believe you did that. That place will fuck with your mind. You know what I mean? It's much more taboo. It feels like you're doing drugs because you're messing with your brain. So I did appreciate that, because I think that done well, that could have added a layer of ambiguity, like a layer of questionality to the story. Exactly. I just don't think that was handled quite that well. What else? As we talked about this last time, as far as the fantasy goes, like being Arnold Schwarzenegger as this big buff dude with Sharon Stone as your wife, like this, and and you were like, well, it would have worked better if Sharon Stone wasn't quite like this beautiful woman, if she was just
I think it worked well for the original because it was so over, like it fit into the whole over the top.
I see what you're saying. So because in this one it was sort of like the same thing, like it's Colin Farrell who's fairly attractive, but then the two women that were fighting over him, like supposedly, are Kate Beckinsale and Jessica Biel, both of who are hugely, enormously attractive women. Like both of them are excellent actors, don't get me wrong. They are phenomenal actors, but they're both also known for being like some of the most attractive women in the industry.
Right. Yes.
So I for me, it was very, very strange that way, where like, I thought, I mean, you're playing with this ambiguity a bit, but I thought it would have been, I mean, in the original Philip K. Dick novel, you said that it was, or short story, you said that like it's a bit more where he's like fighting with his wife and it doesn't become,
they're disagreeing a bit more.
And it to me it felt like, I mean, this is obvious again, and I said it last time, it felt like his fantasy girl should have been a little bit more fantastical and his wife should have been like more realistic, but I suppose that would have made it far too obvious. I don't know. I tried to do something different with that in my pitch. I will admit that my pitch is kind of all over the place. I think it's good, but it is a little like all over the place. It's a movie that would never get made because people would be like, what the fuck? But I think it works better
I can't wait.
as a remake of the original movie because it sort of is what the fuck. And it does something different. But yeah, I thought Bill Nye was way underused.
Yeah, he kind of shows up and then dies.
Yeah. I did one thing that pissed me off that I thought was a really good detail, which I think they should have played into more. It might have been too obvious, but I think it should have played into it more. Was accents.
Oh, okay, right.
Because
you talking about like Australian and British accents?
Yeah, well, Kate, not just like I think if we'd had everyone in the colonies speaks with like a North American accent. Because Kate Beckinsale's character as Laurie, she actually shifts to a British accent.
She does, yes, that's right.
And I think it would have been really interesting if when Douglas, whenever Douglas interacts with with Hauser, like his alternate memory version, Hauser had a British accent because Colin Farrell's an Irish actor, so he can do a British accent. So then it would have been like, oh, he actually got like downgraded to a lower class. And Bill Nye, who's clearly like a British actor as well, Irish actor, I think.
I don't know.
I can't remember. Sorry. And then, but the only way that this doesn't work for me is Bryan Cranston. He has an English, he has an American accent the whole time, and I was like,
right.
I think it would have been really interesting if we were playing with the fluidity of our actors, but also the fluidity of our characters. How Douglas doesn't know that he's actually British, but they use Colin Farrell's British accent or Irish accent, but British accent, because we already did that with Kate Beckinsale, and I thought it was such a good turn. Why don't we do that with Hauser? Why don't we do that with Bryan Cranston?
Yeah. That's a good. Actually, I hadn't thought of that detail, but you're right. That's kind of a weird thing.
Well, he already plays piano. He like that part didn't make sense to me either. Where he just sits down at the piano and is like, "Oh yeah, I know how to play piano. This must be the key. Oh, I meant piano key. That's way too convenient. That is way too convenient."
Yeah, I thought. I mean, yeah.
There are some plot holes as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So the other thing I did enjoy, I liked the reference, the 2 weeks reference.
Oh yeah, the references were amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, how long are you staying? 2 weeks, and I was expecting 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah. 2 weeks.
There were references all over the place in this movie.
Oh yeah.
It's actually, despite the change from Mars to Earth and like the dystopian science fiction future, it's actually like almost scene for scene a exact remake.
To some extent, yes. There are a lot of things like he has to. There's the thing that he's got in his body that he's got to remove.
They added in some things to like add to the world, but like in terms of beats, it's every beat is exactly the same almost.
I would say more or less, yeah. But you're right. Like I think, he's got to go somewhere physically that's like not his own home world. Although I guess the thing that's different with this is like in the original, he's going to the colony, whereas in this he lives in the colony, and so he's essentially like where he's going to is the place that's like. It's sort of, it is kind of reversed in that sense, I suppose. But I thought I actually did think the kind of the Australia as the colony was kind of a bit of a bizarre choice. Also, here's why. Go ahead.
No, you finish.
Well, I was going to say, I think ultimately why I thought it was kind of strange is in the end, it's like, well, I think to me, it just became very much very pro-American, where I think it's trying to sort of like, on some level, it's maybe trying to challenge some idea of imperialism and colonialism. But at the same time, it's like at the end of the movie, it's basically, well, the guy who, the thing where it shifts in the movie is like, oh, it doesn't matter who you were in the past. You can choose who you are now, which is a very like American idea. Yeah. And that's the kind of the ideology that wins out in the end. And then in the end, they're like, oh, we're going to get our independence. So to me watching it, I was like, okay, so it's just kind of like a hurrah, hurrah, America.
Yeah.
Really?
I think I didn't read it so much that way as I read it. Like they were trying to add in some some not so subtle references to like overthrowing oppression, and we're the little guy being stomped on and being used and abused. And that plays into the sort of fantasy, because we see Douglas go from, you know, not getting his promotion to being, you know, a secret spy who actually fucks people up. But I don't know, some of it didn't make sense that way, in that like I don't know, it just doesn't land. I get that the oppression is there, but the original story doesn't need that, nor has that, because the oppression is sort of built into it with the sort of one person owning oxygen.
Yeah.
And it's cheesy as fuck, but in this one, you know, oppression is treated much more seriously, but it because of that, it doesn't land when it's just sort of like, oh, he's the good guy because he's going to help overthrow the people. Whether or not he's the good guy is actually besides the point, right? Hauser turns out to be the bad guy in the
true,
in the original movie, and in this movie to some extent. Although that flip, that reveal doesn't land the same way. I don't care. That's besides the point, because the ambiguity should be more obvious, I think. So that so it doesn't matter about the overthrowing oppression. I here's a question for you that I wonder, and I think it's a good question. How much of this movie do you think somebody watched it and was like, this needs a remake, and then the studio was like, fine, but we need like a good action sci-fi movie that has like definite ending? Like, you can't, do you know what I mean? Like,
maybe I don't know. I know what you're asking, like how much of this was studio notes.
Yeah,
versus,
studio being like, well, hang on a second, like the audience needs to know whether it is or isn't, or I feel like betrayed if we don't. Because a lot of this movie, I'm like, yes, I know what you're going for, and other parts of this movie, I'm like, no, you missed it. You missed the point.
I wonder how much of that too is like how much of, because we've seen the original. Because I felt that way too at parts. I was like, okay. I think
but whoever made this movie, there's no way they didn't see the original with some of those references. Of course they saw the
original. Yeah, exactly. Because of all the, like, it's clearly there, but
this is clearly like a love letter to that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But I mean, it's a good, I mean, it's hard to speculate. I mean, the movie does kind of, it does to me feel like studio notes, but I mean, whether that was how it ended up there or not, that's how it feels to me. Yeah. It feels to me like, okay, we have to, like, we can't, like, to me, what I loved, the thing I liked about the original, one of the things I liked that it ended and it left you going, okay, wait a minute, is he going to wake up in the chair and recall, like, and go home and be like, yes, I remember doing this? Or is this like he actually was a secret agent in his past life, and like, but it leaves it up to you, and I like that. I like that I get the opportunity to figure it out for myself. Whereas in this, it was like, no, like, this is what's going on, and I just, it's just me. I just don't. I feel like I'm being condescending, like someone's talking down to me.
It's a fun action movie,
but
it's not nearly as smart as the original.
Yeah, exactly.
I have two problems with this movie. These are my last two problems, other than the ones we've talked about. My last two problems are, I don't like that this movie doesn't introduce its characters. Like, it never gives us names of its characters. It just sort of goes like, this is this person. This is specifically with Melina. I don't think we get her name until like 20 minutes after she's introduced.
Actually, that's actually a good point. Yeah, that didn't bug me so much, but I see what you mean. Yeah.
That bugs me a lot when because I'm like, who are you? What's your name? If I have to look up on IMDb what your character's name is, and you're one of the main 5 actors, that's bad.
That's a good point, actually.
Secondarily is the whole hacking the brain thing, where there's a firewall encrypted into his brain. We have to hack into it. Like, I don't like that memories are chemicals in this version. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think memories are chemicals. I mean, maybe that's how they carry memories into the brain, maybe, but I didn't like that. And then they can like hack into the brain with the fire. That's stupid. Those kinds of plot points really, really ticked me off. But my last question before we get into pitches is, I want to know your thoughts. So in this movie, I think we've both said that at the end, it's not a memory. He's actually a secret agent.
Yeah.
In the original movie, which way are you leaning?
Well, okay, I have a kind of a weird, convoluted answer to that, which is it doesn't really matter because that's not really the point of the movie.
No, but
to answer your question,
and that's a lot. You're getting to the point of my pitch.
Okay.
yeah.
But to answer your question, in the original movie, I think it's a memory.
I'm the same way. In the original
Yeah.
movie, once I heard the blue sky thing, I was like, hands down, this is a memory.
Yeah, exactly. This has been something and I think that's kind of the point of the movie. It's
Yeah.
like, this whole thing is fake. We gave you, the audience, what you wanted.
Yeah.
It's all stuff that we've basically crafted for your taste.
Yes.
Because you wanted it. It's all fake.
It's all fake. And this movie, and we talked about that meta layer where you're watching a movie which isn't real, which is your escape from reality anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Any science fiction movie like the remake has that like escapism. I just didn't feel like it was overtly pointing through the screen at me.
Yeah.
This was much more like, sure, watch a science fiction movie, Total Recall here.
Yeah.
Whereas
exactly.
in the first one, I really felt like this is what you wanted. You got an escape. None of this was real, even for you, the audience. I never got that tongue-in-cheek feeling from this movie.
I do feel like with this movie, what they picked up on the original is sort of the question of like, how can I know who I am if I don't really remember who I am?
Yeah, there's
and
a good speech there's a good conversation that Matthias and Douglas have where it's like, it doesn't matter who, I thought that was really profound, but they don't do anything with it.
Well, see, and I think that's kind of where I was going with the ending. It was like, okay, well, they kind of just throw out this idea in the middle of the movie and sort of state it like this is what the movie's leading towards, but they don't really question it because I still would go like, yeah, but I still have some questions about that. Like, I still think there's something about even our like mismemory of who we are that's important to understand. Like how we remember history is actually
our
very
relationship
important
to the past. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I felt like the way it kind of like simplified it a little too much. I get it, it's a movie, but I did feel like if that's the theme you're going to explore,
then you got to
that
explore
wasn't
it.
really explored. So I felt like there was hints of that, and I think from the original movie, that was maybe what they picked up on and what they wanted to run with in this movie, which is why it didn't need to necessarily have the meta layer if it was going to focus on that theme, but it didn't really focus on that theme. It kind of threw it in there, and so that, it was there, but it wasn't really explored in all of its depth.
Yeah. I think we should get into some pitches.
I think so too. Yeah.
How are you feeling about your pitch?
I'm actually feeling similarly like how you expressed yours. I think mine's kind of convoluted and weird too.
Oh, I know mine's convoluted.
Okay.
Mine would never get made into a movie. I know this.
I actually feel like mine would is either kind of, it could be a parody of something.
Do you want to go first or do you want to go second?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm really excited to hear yours. I'd like to just get mine out of the way. Okay, so it's essentially mine just starts with him like he wakes up at home, and in my version it's not so much that he's having dreams, but he has some like PTSD from something, like he's on edge, but he has these memories of being a secret agent. That's what's different in mine. Mine essentially starts off where Total Recall ended, and the whole idea is that actually happened.
Oh yeah, okay.
But what's happened is he's now had to keep it a secret, and he can't tell anybody. But now he's traumatized by it because he's like witnessed all these things, like he's killed people, and now there's a sort of a psychological toll that it's taking on him. But he can't talk about it. But so he goes to therapy, and he's like, and the therapist tries to help him, but he can't talk about what's going on, so he feels trapped. Anyway, one day he finds other people who experience the same thing as him. But what it turns out is they have the exact same. They have a memory of doing the same thing he did, and he's like, "Well, that can't be true. We can't both have done the same thing. Something weird's going on." And so there's a whole bunch of them. They find there's a whole group of them who are going like, "I remember being a secret agent and saving all these people on Mars, but or in my version, I kept it on Earth. Like I called it, I just said Great Britain and Australia. Yeah. I remember saving Australia, but no one seems to but I can't tell anybody. Yeah. And so they're all like, well, this is kind of weird. We couldn't have all have saved Australia in the same way. And then they find out about this place called Recall. And then they go, wait, maybe we went to Recall. Because the thing is, if you went to Recall, you'd forget you went to Recall. Yes. You'd just wake up in bed and you'd go, oh, wow, I had this great vacation. So they go, maybe we all went to Recall. So basically, but no one wants to go on the chance that they're actually like they actually do have to keep this a secret, and they were told very explicitly like you cannot tell anybody because it's like top secret government shit. But Douglas Quaid has had enough, so he goes to recall and he's like, I need like. Was I ever here? Like, I don't need my money back. I just need to know. Like, did I show up? And of course, they're trying to protect themselves. So they say, no, you never were here.
Yeah.
You never were. We never reveal that to the audience, but it's like, okay, either he was there or he wasn't, but they deny it.
But they deny
either case. So, but as he's going home, he's followed. Someone follows him. And when he gets home, he's ambushed, but Laurie's not there. Like he escapes, and as he's running, and he gets a call from Laurie. So in my version, it's actually him and Laurie working together. And so basically, like Laurie phones him, and she's like, "What happened to you? Like I was getting home, and I was followed, and I was attacked, and I had to escape." And basically they reconnect, and she basically says, "Look, there's something I haven't told you, Douglas, but I'm actually a secret agent." And so both of them also remember being a secret agent. And so, but they also have this ability, like they can fight, they can do all these things. So they're like, okay, well, wait a minute. Like I remember doing these things. So can I do these things simply because it was implanted in my memory, or did I actually do these things? Yeah. Well, from here, but there's actually now people trying to kill them. So Douglas and Laurie just try to escape. They're both trying to like survive, but they're like, well, we should just tell everybody. Like we should probably just let everybody know that like this is what happened. And what they actually discover in the process is that they are being chased down because every single person in Australia had their mind altered in different ways, and they all bought into a story where like the history that they've all been told about Australia is actually wrong.
Whoa!
And so they've basically all effectively had their memories altered to believe that Australia was founded on this future Australia was founded on fighting the tyranny of some like future Great Britain that became tyrannical. But what actually happened was they were all part of a systemized program that basically went in and took land from poor people and killed them all and turned it into the places where they're now living. Colonialism, basically. But they have had their memories changed so that they don't remember doing that. They actually now tell themselves a story that they are the victors. So they're like, well, we have to tell everybody. We have to tell everybody halfway through. So anyway, halfway through the process, Laurie's captured and Douglas is on his own. So he's got to do it on his own. Anyway, and then at a certain point, Laurie shows up and she's like, Douglas, wait. Like he's about to like do the thing. He's about to save the day. And she shows up and she's like, Douglas, this is a memory. You're actually at recall right now. And then it's the red pill scene. It's the guy comes back and is like, Douglas, look, this is Laurie. Look, there's been a really like none of this has happened. Like you actually never were a secret agent, and there never was a secret program, and there never was any genocide and this like story that you were told about going and killing all the poor people and putting your homes there. You actually like are Douglas Quaid. You have a boring desk job. Take the red pill. And Douglas is really confused. So basically, he basically says like, well, if this is a dream, I can kill you, and it's like I'll wake up eventually. But if it's real, I have to do this because it's morally right for me to do this. So he assumes it's real. And he basically he shoots the red pill guy, and he basically takes Laurie with him because he's like, I have to he knocks out Laurie or something. He's like, I have to get Laurie's being confused. So they go and they find the rebellion, and there's apparently it's the same scene in this one where there's the chair with the memories where they can extract the memories. But in this one, they go and the guy's like, he's like, look, this is Laurie. Like, hey, I need to get my wife back. She's been her brain's been messed with. And the guy basically says look, memories actually can't be deleted or implanted. That's not it's not a hard drive. They're all associated with emotions. So the stronger an emotion is, the stronger the memory is going to be. So, but she's basically had this memory implanted that is associated with really strong anger. we just cannot, like, we actually cannot change her back.
Yeah.
Well, then it turns out this was actually a setup. So it's basically the same thing where it's like, then suddenly the Bryan Cranston character shows up and he's like, Quaid, like it's, what's his name? Hauser? Like, Hauser, you led me right to them all along. And Quaid's totally confused. Like, wait, what? I was a double agent? He's like, yeah. This is all your idea. And then Laurie, and he's like, oh, and by the way, Laurie then gets out of the chair. Laurie was actually a double agent the whole time as well. And so they're like, but thank you. Like, you basically, like, you've led us to the rebellion. Don't worry. We're all going to make this right. We'll, like, put you in the chair and it'll all go back to the way it was. Douglas, like, he fights it, but they strap him in the chair and they're going to wipe his memory, but he escapes. And basically it turns out that, like, Laurie was actually a double agent.
Whoa.
She actually helps him escape. And so they escape, they turn everything back to normal. Everything's fine. Like, and so, but it's like, okay, but now you have to keep it as, like, everybody knows about the real history of what happened with Australia.
Yeah.
And you are now this hero. And so Doug goes back to his life, but now everybody's like, knows, like, oh, he's the guy who, like, made us all remember, like, this like horrible thing that actually happened. And now we can remember the real history of what's going on. Thanks to Douglas Quaid. Anyway, and so he's going to work one day and a guy shows up. It's the same guy he thought he shot in the head earlier. It's the red pill guy. And he's like, so Douglas Quaid, you're actually in the chair right now in recall. Remember when you thought that you were Hauser and they strapped you to a chair? And then Laurie was actually a double agent, broke you. Well, you're actually still in that chair right now. And they're implanting this memory right now and you have to fight it. And basically, and he's like, and you have to wake up because, like, this, like, because right now bad guy Bryan Cranston is gonna, like, just, like, ruin the world. And then Laurie shows up and basically kills the red pill man and is like, Douglas, like, don't listen to him. Like, we actually defeated Bryan. We actually defeated Bryan Cranston, and there's an underground army right now, and they're trying to kill us, and they're trying to put everything back to the way it was and get us all to forget what just happened. And so they have to run for their lives and try to unearth this underground. And so it starts, but that's where the movie ends, where it's like, okay, now they're off on this other. And so it's kind of like what I did with the last pitch, where it's like, but I think I did a bit better job of it this time.
I think you did a better job this time. I could follow it a bit better, but I could see the cycles repeating. Yeah. The whole idea is, like, every time they end up in a chair and they break out, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we fixed it. And then someone shows up and is like, actually, no, you're still back in that chair. And then they keep going. And then it's a question of, like, okay, well, where are we now? I'm totally confused. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. That was good. I like you're still playing with the theme of repetition, like how much is real, and we're constantly, like, getting our memories erased, and we're never clear if Douglas is, like, actually out there or not.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. That's good. So my version, we have Douglas having a dream of a woman, and then he wakes up with his wife Laurie, who works as a medic. So Laurie is played by Kate Beckinsale in mine.
Okay.
So she works as a medic in the colonies. Laurie and Douglas have a bit of an argument over the woman in his dreams, because he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I feel like I know her, and she's like, well, what about me? So a bit of an argument there. Douglas works making synthetic droids, which do all sorts of things. So it's a bit more like WALL-E that way.
Oh, okay.
The robots in the world, but they are also the paramilitary force, but not just that. So this part of the movie is all the same. Douglas keeps feeling like he's forgetting something. He keeps laughing it off. He's like, oh, it's just one of those days. You know, I forgot my wallet at home. I'd forget my butt if it wasn't tied on. And he's having fun with Harry, but he can't shake this feeling. And he asks Harry about recall. And Harry's like, man, those places are sketchy. Like, don't go. And in my version, they are sketchy. So in this version, so while training the new guy, whose name is Merrick, he tells Douglas, you know, check out this recall. Like, it's actually pretty legit. I've gone a couple times. Take this card. They'll treat you right. It won't be as sketchy as you think. And so Douglas is like, okay. He goes to recall and he starts getting the memory transplant. And they're like, you can't have something done you can't have a memory transplanted that you've already done, because it'll start to cause confusion. So you got to be careful about that. It'll cause irreparable damage and confusion. You could potentially go insane. And as you won't be able to tell memories from reality. So Douglas starts the procedure, and the dude's like, oh, sorry, dude, it looks like it didn't take. What we can do is we can push your brain a little bit, and it's a little risky, but we can push your brain a little bit and try again. And Douglas is like, yeah, all right, push my brain. And they start, and right before they begin to start, there's like a memory problem, and Douglas, turns out he's already a secret agent. He winds up killing a bunch of people, and he's disoriented, and he realizes at first, he's like, I'm not sure, but I think this could be a memory, because I've never, I have all these skills, but I could be in a memory. So he goes home to Lori, and she's like really, really worried about him. She's like, oh, you went to recall, and she's upset about that, and he is like, I think I'm having an episode though, so but then I got this, I think I'm having an episode. And she's like, no, everything's fine. And but then he gets a message from Merrick, the new guy at work, and it says, I needed you to remember. And he's like, okay. Shit, maybe it is real. So Lori is like, okay, you just need to wake up and relax. But then some dude smashes into the apartment and tries to kill both of them. So Douglas escapes. He gets picked up by a woman, the woman from his dreams. Highway chase scene occurs, and she introduces herself as Melina. And Douglas, and she's Hauser, was actually like a spy working for this like insurgent operation. And they normally they wouldn't reach out to him, but he has, because he's been memory wiped and it's too risky, but they were like, we needed Merrick to reach out to you and get you to remember, because you have some information we need, and we need you to remember. Hauser had so we need you to remember what it's like to be Hauser. And he's like, I don't know what that is. And Douglas is freaking out, and his wife is in danger, and he's like, I gotta go save her, because Laurie's not a bad dude in this one. But there isn't time to think about that. Instead, they go to his apartment, and he gets a recording from Hauser, who also urges him, you need to remember what this is. And as they leave the apartment, they're surrounded, and Laurie's outside, and Harry comes in and is like, look, dude, none of this is real. You're just experiencing memories, and if you let this go too long, they could start bleeding into reality. You're having a psychotic break. But Hauser's like, no, none of this makes sense. And so he shoots Harry. It's the red pill scene.
Okay,
so the whole movie, minus Laurie chasing Melina, minus Laurie basically doing the chasing, is the same until they get to the no-go zone. And instead of seeing Matthias in person, the Resistance, we can't take a chance, but we're going to let you meet him and see his face, but it's on a computer screen. It's still remote. Okay. And he's like, and Matthias is like, I need you to remember it. Douglas is like, I don't even know who I am. How can I remember something somebody else knows? And Matthias is like, if you want to stay this way, if you want to stay Douglas and be Douglas, we can help. You just have to achieve something called total recall. Total recall is when you remember everything, because memories aren't really, they don't disappear. They're just overwiped. Your brain never forgets anything. It's still in there. It's just putting blockers in place so you can't remember them. What we can do is help you through therapy and chemical therapy as well. We can help you remember, and you can achieve something called total recall. And so they begin working on it, and Douglas starts recovering his memories of Hauser, and he starts remembering flashes of all sorts of things, like Mars, even though he's like, I don't think Hauser's ever been to Mars. And he asks, and Melina's like, no, Hauser works for secret intelligence here on Earth. He's never been to Mars. But he's like, how am I remembering these things? So then Cohagen and his crew show up, and they don't get Matthias, but they capture Douglas and Melina. And Cohagen's like, this is a step up. This is the Bryan Cranston character. He's like, this is a step up. Last time we only caught Hauser, but this time we have Hauser and Melina, and we're going to make sure the wipe works for real. So they escape, and then Douglas, they try to get out of here, but Douglas gets hit in the head while trying to save Melina and gets knocked out.
Okay.
And he wakes up with Melina next to him in his apartment. And there's no scar on her hand, and he freaks out for a second. He's like, whoa, what's going on? And she's like, whoa, calm down. Everything's fine, Douglas. And wait a second, did you call me Melina? And he's like, what? Oh, yeah, sorry. I must be still shaken by my dream. And now it's Jessica Biel is the Laurie character.
Oh, I like where this is going.
So it's like the beginning of the movie all over again. Right. But this time Douglas asks Laurie in quotation marks what she thinks about Mars. He's like, I keep having flashes of Mars. And she's like, no, Douglas, we've been over this before. We can't go to Mars. We can't afford it. And then he asks Laurie what she knows about total recall. And she's like, is that a premium version of recall? Do you just pay more for a total recall?
Right.
And sort of a joke. And he's like, you better not fuck around with your mind, Douglas. It's just not a good... So Douglas goes to work. But before he goes to work, instead he decides to shirk, and he goes to a recall facility, and he asks the same dude that he had in his previous memory or whatever. He's like, "Yeah, what do you know about total recall?" And the dude's like, "Well, every time a memory wipe happens, the brain doesn't forget. It just buries it deep in the mind. So a total recall is when not just bits of memory, but all your memories are revealed." And Douglas is like, "Well, can you help with that?" And the man's like, "Well, we can induce a mild psychotic break. It's risky, but it could cause you to completely go brain dead or go insane. But theoretically, it could help you get all of your memories back if you think they're there." And Douglas is like, "Yeah, something is weird. Like I'm remembering like Laurie not being my Laurie, like a different Laurie." So the dude's like, "Okay, I can push your brain, and then we'll see if it works." So he put him under, and it doesn't work. And he's like, "Let me see if I can push your brain." Right?
Okay.
The same thing we saw. And so Douglas is like, "Okay." And then he wakes up, but it doesn't work. This time it doesn't work. And he like goes to work with Harry. And on his way home, he gets a phone call, but doesn't recognize the voice. And he's like, "Hey, who is this?" And she's like, "It's Laurie." He calls home, and he's like, "Laurie, like, do you wanna go out on a date?" And he doesn't recognize the voice, but she's like, "It is Laurie. I'm Laurie. Don't worry, but I'm working late tonight. I told you that. You have to remember. You have to remember." And he's like, this keeps like these every time somebody says he has to remember, it keeps like sending him. So then he hangs up, but he's feeling really shook up because the way she said you have to remember. And then as he's leaving, as they head inside to the bar with Harry, he hears a man say, "Yeah, man, see you at the party, Richter." And Douglas then experiences a full-on episode, like a full episode.
Right.
So basically, what he thinks happened, he's like, "What I think is happening is that like they like wiped Melina's mind and like implanted her as Laurie in order to try to keep me complacent." And he's having a full psychotic break. And Harry's like, "Dude, man, you gotta wake up. You like this. You're freaking out." And Douglas actually wakes up.
Okay.
Also, I just want to put this in place because it is important. The reason when he called home to ask Sharon if she wanted to go, or ask Laurie when she wanted to go out with him, is because in my version, the Laurie that picks up the phone, we never see her, but it's Sharon Stone.
It's
playing Laurie.
Funny. Oh, that's funny. Okay, I like that.
It's Sharon Stone on the phone. It's her voice.
Right. Oh, that's funny.
So Douglas wakes up in the therapist chair from my original pitch. And the therapist is actually Harry, and Laurie is there, but she's of course only playing the role of his wife, so it doesn't matter which actress. It can be Kate Beckinsale or Sharon Stone or it doesn't matter. I don't care.
Right. Okay.
I think it would be funny if it was Kate Beckinsale because it like goes back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So now they know, they're like, Douglas saw something on Mars, and we have no idea about what it was, but we need to know what it all, and they have all their memories put him on file, and he's like remembering all of this. He's like, you can't keep wiping my head, and he's like, what they don't know is that he remembers every memory he's ever had. He's experienced total recall. And so now it's not just a case of him being like, I know who I am. It's a case of him remembering every memory they've ever implanted.
Oh,
so now he has all the skills he's ever remembered. So not only is he a secret agent, but he's an astronaut. He's like a miner. He has all of these memories.
Everything.
So he basically like, they call someone in, and all of a sudden agents start coming into the therapist, and he shoots Harry in the head, and he gets into a fight with Laurie, but this time he like straight up kills her, and it's Kate. I think it works better if it's Kate Beckinsale. He straight up just shoots her. He's like, "Nah, man, I'm not doing this again. You keep lying to me." So he's slowly like bringing all these memories back as like total recall fills in his mind, but then then all of a sudden, even though he like he's like, wait a second. Like the therapist comes in, and it's not Harry this time, but another therapist comes in, and he's like, "Hey, you have to wake up. Like this is all this is all a lie." And Douglas is like, "No, man, we can't keep doing this. Like, we already did this." And then he's like, "Wait a second. We keep repeating the same thing over and over again, even when what I thought was the real world. So this can't be the real world. This is another memory." And so he's like, he goes back to the therapist's office and sees all the files of his different memories. And they're like, but it's all the same repeating actions as this one. They need me to remember something. So he's like, I need to wake up. So he wakes up again, he sees like, he's like a miner on Mars, and he found something on Mars. And when he saw it, he went nuts. but we, from the audience's point of view, we don't know what he saw. And what he did is he actually erased his mind so that he would not be insane.
Okay.
So he himself was like, I don't want to remember this.
Right.
And erased his mind, and the government found out, and they want to know what it is, so they captured him and tried to like torture him. So that's what happened. But then Douglas wakes up again, and he's still trapped in the chair at the recall center.
Okay.
And the dude is like, sorry, man, I don't know if you want me to push your brain any harder, but it didn't take. You might go insane, or it could give you false memories, or you like... And Douglas is like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I don't care if this is real or not. I don't think I should fuck with my brain. And he goes home. He calls into work sick. And he's like, I'm going to go home. And he goes home to his wife, and he opens the door, and he's like, hey, Lori, I'm home. Like, I'm not feeling well. And she calls back to him. She's like, oh, hey, I love you. Like, but we don't see which Lori it is.
Oh, nice.
And the door closes on his apartment, and that's the end of the movie.
Wow.
So like the whole idea is for me it was like
that's
it was
cool.
Like, so this version of Total Recall is real. The original version of Total Recall is real. My version, your version, every version of Total Recall is actually all real. They've all happened. Every version of Total Recall, including your picks, like all of them are real. But in the end, Douglas goes, I don't care. He's like, I keep experiencing like the same patterns over and over and over again because of these memories. So he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to be happy with what my life is. I'm going to remain me, whoever that might be, and just be happy with it. And then at the end, I wanted it to be like, we don't see which Lori it is because he's gone to Recall 2 different times. And once was with, Kate Beckinsale as Lori, and the other time was when Jessica Biel was Lori. And so like it doesn't, like, we as the audience, and even Sharon Stone potentially, we never see who Lori is in the final scene. So you're not certain whether he actually ever went into Total Recall, or you're not certain if any of them were real, or which Lori is actually the real Lori, or whether he's accepting Jessica Biel as Lori versus...
Ooh.
So it's I mean, it's basically stolen from Inception, but the idea
I like that.
You don't know whether any of that was real. He's just like, you know what? I'm not going to fuck with my brain.
Exactly. Oh, that's great. Oh, I like that. Yeah. That was really fun. Yeah.
I at the end, I was like, you know what? I don't think it matters. I think the point of the movie is that it has to not matter. He has to decide whether it matters or not. Yeah. And in my version, it has to be like this crazy roller coaster of cyclical memory on memory on memory, and in the end he has to go like, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's great. I love it.
Yeah.
There you go, man. That was fun. Total Recall again. I just we Total Recalled twice in a row.
Total recall. I will also say that my dad used to work for a company called Recall.
Oh, yes, I think you mentioned that last time.
I think I did, but what they did is like kept files for like law companies and stuff. And so all it was like a storage facility.
Right.
But yeah.
Just like a really big hard drive.
Yeah. It was also spelled like the proper way, RECALL instead of REK. Anyway, where can people find you?
I am on Twitter. I think my Twitter is Nate Draper. My letterboxd is Draper Nate. And my website is www.nathanieldraper.com.
Yeah, go check out his website. He's got lots of cool videos on there. I think some of the music videos are on there too.
Yes, I've got 2 of the Robot Philosopher music videos.
Yeah, so you can go to Nate's website and see some of the music from my band Robot Philosopher, or anywhere else to listen to music. You can also check out our other channel, the CineMasters, for more scripted content. And thank you so much for sticking around here. There's always new episodes and old ones coming out. Where we do all the deconstructing. Basically this, but on different movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Thanks for listening.
Peace.
Bye.